Life has a way of repaying debts, whether good or bad. You may rise on the back of another man, but if you build your success on betrayal, one day, that betrayal will call your name. And when it does, no amount of wealth, power, or regret will be enough to stop it. This is the story of Desmond Okoye, a man who thought he had outsmarted fate, until fate came knocking. 15 years ago, Desmond was just another young man in Lagos, hungry for success but with no direction. He had no money, no connections, and no one to call his own. Life had shown him nothing but hardship, until he met Mr. Patrick Nwosu. Patrick was a self-made man, a businessman who had built his company from the ground up. He saw something in Desmond: potential, drive, ambition. And because Patrick believed in lifting others, he took Desmond under his wing. Patrick didn't just give Desmond a job, he gave him a chance at life. He taught him the ropes of the business, introduced him to powerful people, even helped him secure a place to stay when Desmond had nowhere to go. To Patrick, Desmond was like a younger version of himself. One evening, as they sat in Patrick's office, Patrick looked at Desmond with fatherly pride. "Desmond," he said, "you remind me of myself when I was your age. But always remember, power is not about what you take, it's about what you build." Desmond smiled and nodded, but deep inside, a different fire was burning. As Desmond grew in the company, so did his ambition. He watched Patrick make decisions, handle millions, sign deals. And slowly, a thought began to creep into his mind. Why should I work for him when I can be him? And just like that, the seed of greed took root. Then came Mr. Jide, a wealthy but ruthless businessman who knew how to manipulate people's desires. One evening, Jide invited Desmond to a private lounge. "You're a smart man, Desmond," Jide said, swirling his drink. "Tell me, why are you still working for Patrick? When will it be your turn?" Desmond hesitated. "Patrick trusts me. He gave me everything." Jide leaned forward, smirking. "And will trust buy you a house in Banana Island? Will it make you rich?" Then, Jide slid a folder across the table. Inside were forged documents, fake audit reports, manipulated transactions, proof that Patrick had been embezzling company funds. It was all a lie, but it looked real. "Take this," Jide said. "If Patrick falls, you rise." Desmond stared at the folder, his hands shaking. And that was the moment he made the choice. The next morning, the documents were leaked anonymously. The company went into chaos. Investors panicked. Employees whispered. The board demanded answers. Patrick was shocked. He had built his company with integrity. How could this be happening? But before he could prove his innocence, the authorities stepped in. One evening, as Patrick was leaving his office, police officers swarmed in. "Mr. Patrick Nwosu, you are under arrest for financial fraud." Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. As they led him away, he turned to Desmond, his most trusted protégé. "Desmond," his voice was weak, confused. You believe this?" But Desmond did not answer. He simply looked away. And just like that, the man who made him who he was fell. The company was taken from Patrick. His assets were seized. His family was thrown into disgrace. His wife collapsed in shock. Their home, gone. Their cars gone. His son, Daniel, was in university when he got the call. "Your father has been arrested." Daniel rushed home, only to find his father broken. The once strong man who led with wisdom now sat in silence, staring at nothing. A few months later, Patrick suffered a massive stroke. He never recovered. He couldn't talk. He couldn't fight back. Daniel stood beside his father's hospital bed, holding his lifeless hand. And in that moment, A vow was made. I will never forget, and I will never forgive. With no future left in Nigeria, Daniel left for the United States. Meanwhile, Desmond sat in Patrick's old office. His office. The betrayal was complete, or so he thought. 15 years later, Desmond had everything: wealth, power, success. But then, life struck back. One day, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. The doctors ran tests. The diagnosis was brutal. Your heart is failing, Mr. Okoye. Without surgery, you won't survive. His only hope: a highly specialized surgeon, a doctor in the United States, a doctor named Dr. Daniel Nwosu. The final moment. Desmond flew to America. He booked the best hospital. He was desperate. He was placed on a hospital bed, waiting. Then, the door opened, and in walked Dr. Daniel Nwosu. Desmond's breath caught in his throat. His past had found him. Daniel stood there, staring at the man who destroyed his father. Desmond's lips trembled. Daniel, But Daniel raised his hand. Don't. His voice was cold. Desmond reached out, begging. Please, help me. But all Daniel said was, my father needed your help once, remember? You turned away. Desmond gasped, his heart pounding erratically. The machines beeped wildly. And then, he collapsed. Desmond was gone. Closing scene and moral lessons. As Daniel walked out of the hospital, he felt nothing. There was no revenge, only justice. Because the truth is simple. The evil that men do lives after them. No matter how high you climb, if your foundation is built on betrayal, it will crumble. Never bite the finger that fed you. Because the same hand you destroyed today may be the only one that can save you tomorrow. And when that day comes, no amount of regret will be enough.